Welcome to Dr. Roger and Friends, the bright side of longevity, hosted by three Ps in a podcast, Doc Roger, Teresa, and Danielle. Thanks for joining us for Coffee and Conversation. The episode you're about to listen to is a compilation of Facebook Live video messaging put out by Doc Roger and Friends, The Bright Side of Longevity, as part of their We're All in This Together series. In this episode, we're discussing coping and self-care techniques during COVID-19, to include the value of sleep, setting boundaries when working from home, the role of humor in coping, and a few tips for the introvert and extroverts among us.
So I've been hearing a lot from my friends, and I know you have also, and we're hearing it on the many Zoom calls and things that we do every day about sleep. And that sleep has been, for some, significantly disrupted. Or, we're getting the range from insomnia to narcolepsy, where someone is sleeping all the time. Bad dreams. Now, certainly with what's going on, that is all very, very understandable. I don't think that Jane, who was on our podcast, who's a psychotherapist, would think that this is abnormal. But it is something, if you're not getting a normal sleep, that we hope we can help you with, because it's very important. Now more than ever, sleep is so important for to be resilient, to be positive, to be able to help those around you who you need to help. And just to get through this very, very challenging and certainly novel in a not a very positive way experience. In order to get that sleep, I don't know. What do you do, Danielle, and what would you recommend? I think we know that it's pretty disruptive if you don't get good sleep, isn't it?
Absolutely. Lack of sleep equates to lack of productivity at work. Your memory suffers. You tend to eat more, and a lot of times it's sugar just to wake yourself up, and caffeine. We're more accident prone, and we're more at risk for heart disease and anxiety and depression, all the bad stuff. So I've always valued sleep. I must say I envy the power sleepers like my husband, who can sleep through anything. I've always been a light sleeper where I'll wake up in the middle of the night, but I always fall back to sleep, except now, with everything going on, I'm noticing a lot more odd dreams where I'll wake up and I have to do some kind of visualization or meditation to fall back to sleep. So that's my go-to for getting the sleep, and I'd recommend a meditation app or something if you're falling into that. One of my tools, if I need it, if I really don't get a good night's sleep, is either a mid-afternoon 20-minute meditation or even a power nap. And power naps, if it's 20 minutes or less, can be really important to kind of boost you, as long as it's not like after 3 or late in the day. So if you find at night that you're getting into a pattern of not sleeping because of the nap, don't nap. Otherwise, I'm an advocate of naps. So I know Teresa has some really great suggestions too.
There's so much that is in our control. And I think during interesting times like these, especially for those of us who are grieving, and many of us are grieving something, it could be one or the other. You could be sleeping all the time, or you could be, an insomniac. And there's so much, though, that we can do to help ourselves. And, I don't know about you guys, but eating healthfully for me there's a direct correlation, an immediate correlation to how I sleep. So I'm always regretting, why did I do that? Now I'm laying here awake. I think for a lot of people, getting your workout in early is really helpful. Weights, cardio in the morning rather than later at night prior to bedtime, and managing that lighting prior to bedtime, so dimming the lights around you, is extremely helpful. And of course, I think many of us have heard the advice of having a bedtime routine, and that certainly helps. Limiting screen time is related to that light that your eyes are taking in. Going to bed at the same time, waking up at the same time is huge. Hoping everyone can do what they can to get some good sleep, even in this crazy time.
The news out there there's some good, nice things happening, but let's face it, the news is really draconian, and that can be very upsetting. So I certainly would limit that. Maybe the morning, and certainly not at night. Anywhere near bedtime, I wouldn't do that. I'm thinking when all this is over, there's so many things that are going to be changed. We're seeing clean air, and we're seeing meals around with the whole family around the table, which and culturally is getting more rare all the time. But anyway, we're getting back to some behaviors that were characteristic of us for a long time, and I'm hoping that some of those things will persist. Certainly, I hope we're prepared for pandemics better, and we give thought, and we have research on viral diseases and that sort of thing. But as far as our lives, I'm hoping that we begin to value some things that we had kind of lost sight of because of our, being production oriented, outcome oriented, trying to living a frenzied life, getting a lot done. And in that culture, sleep was kind of, it was a luxury, or it was a necessary annoyance, because you want to produce more. Well, I hope that goes away, because you mentioned food and sleep. Well, I equate sleep to food. This is not something that's negotiable, and it's absolutely critical to our health, our mood, our ability to function. And so this is a non-negotiable thing. So whatever it takes, folks, and you heard a lot of good tips today, get that. And, the blue zones, they live a long time, and they tend to be happier people. And the Mediterranean type of life, that they take naps, and they understand that sleep is critical and sweet and something they welcome. Today we were thinking, the three of us collectively have vast experience in working at home, which many of you are doing now but are not used to it. And it's a new experience, and you're, I'm sure, experiencing some of the things that we went through when we began to work at home. The first thing for me was I thought my wife was going to be very happy to have me at home, but it didn't work out that way. No, it was a change for her. And we'll deal with change as a future topic, because there's a lot of changes here. But for today, let's talk about working at home, the challenges are there, and how you can best manage all of the challenges that are there. I'm gonna let Danielle kick this off.
Yeah, thank you. So I've been working remotely since 2006. And sometimes people will say, okay, people who work from home are not motivated, and that can be a problem, and we will talk about that today. But for the vast majority of us who've been doing it for some time, and some of you might be experiencing this, the opposite is true, where we just don't know when to unplug. So we're working constantly, plus there's the danger if you have people that you're answering to who assume, well, you're just available 24/7 because you're not going anywhere. And it's really easy, and I've been hearing that from a number of my friends who are now working remotely, where colleagues and bosses are pinging them on emails like late at night and expecting them to be around on the weekends, like, hey, there's nothing else going on. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about boundaries from the perspective of, how to set some to protect your time. So one recommendation that might work for you that I do, have a space in your house, even if it's a corner or something, that is the workspace. And when work's over, put your tools away, put your computer, put everything away so that it's out of mind, and go someplace else in the house, if possible. Because as much as you can, otherwise there's going to be the tendency to want to go back and just do one more thing and do one more thing and not unplug. Secondly, be strict with yourself about time. So if you say, I'm going to unplug from this time on Saturday, guard that time. Guard it for yourself, and if other people start imposing on that time, guard it. Obviously, there are emergencies. There are some professions where that's not an option, but for many of us who it is an option, set those boundaries. even if it's having to prioritize with people. Because the other trap I've fallen into is when you get these requests is to want to like bat them all right away, and not everything's a priority. Figuring out what do I need to do right now versus what can be deferred for a week or something when I can manage. And the last thing is just unplug. Let people know either when you're working, like this are my scheduled hours, or this is when you're not going to hear from me. I'm going to be off the grid, so to speak. So definitely allow for some downtime and protect that time.
Good thoughts, Danielle. And sometimes the opposite is true. Sometimes, even those of us who are veteran working from home people, we have to get motivated and stay motivated. And for some people, that's brand new territory. One thing that works really well for me is Monday morning, I plan what I want to accomplish in the week. And I know what my goals are just for that week. And I then go to my calendar and block the time to accomplish the goals. Now, it might be too much. If you're a full-time employee, it might be too much to block, a full 40-hour week. So think of it differently. Think of what do you need to accomplish? Block time to accomplish those things versus just blocking time to be at work, so to speak. Also, plan your downtime, your breaks, your lunches, your free time, so that it's all there. All the parts of you and all the things you want to achieve, including having downtime, should be on your calendar. And then just kind of doing your best to be true to your calendar and true to your goals. It's very tempting to overplan. I highly recommend not overplanning your calendar. And then as reality hits during the week, just do your best. Don't waste time and energy judging yourself, because that has no upside whatsoever. Think of this entire time in our lives as an experiment of working from home and honoring your calendar. And certainly if you have school-aged kids at home, or if you have toddlers, we'll have a moment of silence for the people who have toddlers at home. Your schedule may go out the window quick. That's okay. Think of it as an experiment, and nothing has to be perfect during this time. So just some thoughts from me there.
Well, yes, a lot of wisdom there from you too. Well, I wrote a book. Most of it was written at home over a year's time, and what I found is that in order to certain tasks require focused attention for a length of time, and if you break that focus, you lose your train of thought. You lose a lot of your creativity, and so particularly for creative things or things that do require that kind of focus, I think you have to be pretty deliberate and structured over it. And it may not be as much as you want, but indeed structure it so that, because otherwise it's like multitasking. We don't really multitask. We just jump from one task to the next, and the quality suffers for all of those tasks, rather than if we were to just focus on one. Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of humor lately, a whole lot of humor. I particularly am drawn to it because, as a physician, there were times, say, particularly working emergency room, or there were a lot of terminal illnesses on the services where we were, that in the back room where no one else could hear it, there was frequently some humor we call dark humor. And it was really coping mechanism to get through what we were all facing. We were young adults. Many of us had never even seen death before, and now we were in great detail, and the suffering and trauma and things that that are very difficult to deal with. So humor was a way to get through that. We also mourned and cried and hurt, but humor really did a lot. But there's mixed response to this humor, isn't there, Danielle?
There certainly is. In the beginning, people were joking about COVID as an illness and making light of it. And I know even I got, a little prickly about it. But people aren't joking about the virus or how serious it is. They're not joking about people suffering, but they are joking about being in quarantine and running out of toilet paper and wanting to strangle your spouse and going stir crazy, little things that we're all facing, and they're kind of looking at it in a lighthearted way. Personally, humor is a great coping mechanism for me, and I feel like that type of humor is a good thing. I'm kind of with Abe Lincoln when he said, "I laugh because I must not cry. That is all."
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the benefits, I feel, are really important, for laughter. It's reducing stress and anxiety, which we're all facing. It's helping boost our creativity and problem solving, which I personally like. It makes our cardiovascular system healthier. It gives us an endorphin rush so that we're happier, and it assists in pain reduction. So there's so many benefits to laughing. I feel like we should laugh as much as possible. Still being sensitive to what's going on around us, but try to find humor in where you are and what you're experiencing.
Such good advice. And I like that Abe Lincoln quote, but I think it's okay to cry too. It's okay to laugh and cry. When we feel judgmental towards someone who's laughing, we're making it mean something. But truly, laughter is okay. It doesn't mean that they're not taking the situation seriously. And it doesn't mean that there's no understanding of the gravity of the situation or the deaths or the suffering or the risk. I think that can exist. We can understand those things and grieve those things and also laugh out loud. Like, both are possible all at the same time, really. I read such a great quote, and it was, laughter is like a windshield wiper. It doesn't stop the rain, but it allows us to keep going. And I think that's really beautiful. It doesn't negate these difficult times in any way, but it's a few seconds of lightness, and that's okay. It's maybe a shock absorber, right, that eases the blows of this life. So my sense is, go ahead and laugh. It's good for us, and it's totally okay.
And I agree. I don't think we should be judgmental at this time. We're all just trying to get through the night, so to speak, through this time. And we all do it in different ways. We're different people. Some time ago, Norman Cousins wrote a book, The Anatomy of an Illness, which was his personal story with a terminal illness. He was diagnosed with a terminal illness way back in the 70s. And he was bummed out. He was in the hospital, and they said, probably not more than a year. And so he thought about that and said, I always feel better when I laugh. I mean, it gets things going in my brain. He didn't know about all the mechanisms, but we know now, all the neurotransmitters and things that happen in the serotonin and everything, all very healthy. And so he said, so I want to laugh. So he discharged himself from the hospital. He got some Marx Brothers movies and some Candid episodes and got a projector, because back in the 70s, yes, young people, we used to view things that way. And I went back to the hospital and did whatever treatments, which was to make him comfortable. And he started laughing, and he laughed and he laughed. And he laughed himself into remission for 30 years. He died of another illness. Now, we didn't know what that was at the time, but we know now that laughter is associated with stronger immune systems and less likelihood certainly of depression, but also things like cancer and heart disease and dementia even. And so it is a very powerful social connector, I think, and that social connection we know keeps us well. But whatever it is, we all feel better when we laugh. And yes, it's a tough time, and a lot of people are suffering. And again, just as you two said, this doesn't negate or doesn't, in some way attack the sensitivity of the moment. And we feel badly with compassion and empathy, but we also, many of us have families with children, and let's face it, we have to get them through this and not put any load that we have of emotion on them. So whatever it takes, but laughter is an excellent mechanism. Laughter with respect.
Today, I would like to talk about the online battle between the introverts and the extroverts on social media, where the extroverts are saying they're going stir crazy and the introverts are saying how great this is. In reality, I think it's a misconception that all extroverts are unhappy and all introverts are just doing fine. Just to kind of set the stage, if you don't know, introverts tend to gather energy from themselves, from self-reflection, from contemplation, whereas extroverts really feed off the energy of interacting with other people. And there's no absolutes. I tell people I'm an introvert on the cusp, so I have extrovert tendencies. So we all tend to have, a combination. So the tips I'd like to offer today actually apply to both sides, both extrovert and introvert. And some of the things that we're noticing, say, with introverts who are stuck at home with families and they feel like there's no place I can go to be alone, and that's frustrating. Or if they have maybe some social anxiety, now they're using it as an excuse to, I'm not going to talk to anybody ever, which is not healthy either. And then you have the extroverts who are kind of circling the house like they're used to going to events and meetings. And it's like, okay, what am I going to do with my time? So here are some tips, and I can kind of break them down into 3 categories. Number 1, your routine. Do not stay in your pajamas all day long. Even if you don't have a job and you're not working, create some kind of consistency in your life, some type of schedule. So I'm not saying you have to chalk it full morning to night like I tend to do, but have something that you can go to every day to keep you in sync. So that might be creating a purposeful activity, whether it's taking a household task that needs to be done, learning something new online, doing some virtual volunteering, something where at the end of the day you can say, I did that and I accomplished something. Make time for social connection via, talking to a neighbor across the street or talking on the phone, just something where it actually becomes a regular event in your day. Okay, here's the social hour. If you need to schedule lunch and dinner, schedule time to get out and get some exercise. One of the misconceptions too is that when it says stay at home, you have to have the shutters drawn. No, you can go outside, just stay away from other people, keep a healthy distance, 6 feet, but get your morning walks in or whatever exercise so you're getting some fresh air. So most important, have a routine. Second, alone time. It doesn't matter if you're an introvert and extrovert, you need time to recover, time to just clear your mind. And that might be finding a room, a walk-in closet, whatever you have to do in your house, and putting a sign on the door telling the family from this time each day for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, like, don't knock. Just, I need this time, whether it's to meditate, to pray, to just have some quiet. Everybody needs that. So schedule that alone time. And the last one has kind of become fun for me is the creative socializing. So people think, okay, I'm stuck inside and I miss my friends. But in addition to Skype and video chatting, you can get creative and have online game nights. You can call a friend and say, hey, they have this yoga class online. We can both log in and take the class at the same time. Or we're going to try a recipe. I'm going to set up my computer. You set up your computer in your kitchen, and we're going to try this and talk it through together. So find some creative ways.
Good advice, Danielle. Harvard Medical School and others have for decades shown that connecting with others reduces our stress and increases our happiness and impacts our longevity pretty significantly. So we know the benefits are there. We just have to be a little more creative. To your point, it's about physical distancing, not social distancing. And whether we're an introvert or an extrovert, I think we should all try to avoid solitary confinement if we're sheltering alone. And we all need solitude if we've got a full house. So I think, there's certainly differences in personalities, but we all have a lot in common too. We probably all have a better sense of what our needs are during this time. So it might help to write them down and then figure out a way to plan for them in regular doses. And maybe it's just small doses throughout the day. But the point is for yourself. The point is to have your own back, to take care of yourself during this time. And don't let your brain shut itself down by thinking, well, that's not possible, or I don't know how. Ask your brain to come up with maybe 10 ideas and just pick what makes the most sense for now, and set an alarm and remind yourself and just make it happen, because truly there's never been a more important time to do what's good for our souls than right now.
You've been listening to Dr. Roger and Friends, The Bright Side of Longevity. If you like the show, please rate and review, and be sure to click to follow.